On tonight's agenda, we're going to be interviewing candidates for the replacement spot on our roster. We will then have the budget review from last fiscal year's budget with Matt. Then we're going to do the minutes. Then we're going to talk about some ideas of how to proceed this year. And I'll discuss about budget books and CDs that are coming out and the liaison request forms. Then we will have public participation and then the infamous other. Mark sent me a notice and a phone call Saturday that he could not be with us tonight. He's in our nation's capital doing some work down there. And so I asked him to just fill me in on anything else he might be interested in addition to his letter that he sent us. The information he gave me was that he was on the EDAC committee 1 year as secretary and for a 3-year term. And he also was involved with the Business Expo in town with Dave McRae and Mike Malzone. And that he's lived in town for 20 years. And he again reiterated his wife works at Master Kohler Elementary School. And he wishes both him and the other candidate luck. And we will leave it at that. So we don't really have any questions we can ask. We can, after we interview David, we can discuss both candidates and then decide what way we want to go. So at this time, I will ask David Ilg to please come up and have a seat there. This is David Ilg, and if you have his letter in front of you, you'll see that he expressed interest in this position. He does live in Merrimack, and I'm going to ask you to do your own little talk, a brief history, what you do, kids, why you'd like to, the personal approach. You do need to push the little button on the base of the microphone. You'll see a green light come on if it's not already on, and then you'll be able to talk.
Okay.
So
Hi.
it's your show.
Good evening. My name's David Ilg. I live in Merrimack. I've been here for 4 years. I grew up in Hudson. I spent my whole life until I moved to Merrimack and Hudson. When I was a senior in high school, I was on the school board. I was a representative for the high school. I found it very interesting. I had a chance to see how the process worked and be involved with some of the decisions. I have 3 boys, 4, 3, and 1. They'll be going to Merrimack schools, and part of the biggest reason why I'm interested in this position. Another reason is I feel school, the better the education for everybody, the better the community will be, and the better life me and my wife and my boys will have in this town. So I want to be involved.
Okay. At this point in time, we'll open it up for questions, and what I would like to do is we'll go around the table, starting with Bill, and then go this way, and then we'll kind of keep doing that until we run out of questions to bother him with. Bill, you have any questions you'd like to ask David?
First of all, I applaud you for stepping forward. Really appreciate the fact that you're interested in doing this. My question is, from the standpoint of, I can relate to having young children. Now they're in high school and middle school. So, what do you hope to? What are some of your goals as far as being a member of the budget committee?
Well, I think it's twofold. I want my kids to see me involved. I want them to be an active participant in the school system, in the community, and so I think it's my responsibility to show them, to lead the way for them, to show them that I'm involved. The second part is I find it interesting. I've owned 2 businesses. I've had a restaurant in Hudson, and I currently own a body shop in Nashua. And so I like the budget aspect of it. I like the numbers. I like looking at it, and I find it very interesting.
Thank you.
John?
No real questions, thank you.
Shelley?
Just a question, when you say you had a business in Hudson and Nashua, what do you see in Merrimack as the advantages while you're living here in this community?
Several. There's its location. My sister-in-law's husband grew up in Merrimack, so when me and my wife were looking for houses, we talked to him quite a bit, and he really likes the town. They stay here. They still live here. They have 2 small daughters. Did I say location? I think I did. And you know, it's an up-and-coming town. It's you read the reports. It's the #1 town in New Hampshire. A lot of times, it's the safety. I mean, it's just a really good place. Me and my wife felt to raise our children.
Kevin?
Hi. Thanks for being here. Thanks for volunteering your time and all. One question, I guess, how come or why go through this process as opposed to getting your name on the ballot several months ago? Which, by the way, is easier. So.
Yes, I would assume it would be. Because I just met my neighbor, Cinda. She's involved in this, and she told me the position opened up. I'd always wanted to join, kind of didn't know the process, and then I found out about this, went online, seen the quick letter, and then interrogation. Not so bad.
Great, thanks.
Rick?
Actually, a question for you, Sandy. Did we confirm, because the other candidate's not here to answer it, did we confirm both are registered voters?
The school district clerk confirmed with the town clerk. They are both registered voters.
That's my only question. Thank you.
I have kind of an interesting question. Last spring's election, there was a warrant article to disband the Budget Committee. What's your feeling of that?
I feel the Budget Committee is a good step towards building the budget for the school. It provides a layer before the school board, kind of takes a little bit off their plate. Allows them to focus on other matters and then kind of see what the recommendations come through from the Budget Committee.
Carol?
When you talk about, your children are young, I know no one knows their future, but as far as you know, you're planning on being in town for a prolonged time?
Yes, I've put a lot of money into my house. I've really committed. My kids love it here. We love our neighborhood. Our home now is, by all intents and purposes, our forever home.
And because you own a business, I assume there isn't going to be much of a conflict as far as making these meetings and...
No, we're pretty straightforward 8 to 5 business.
Okay.
Occasionally I have to stay till 6, but these meetings will be no problem. We have certainly people that can cover me
Okay.
when I'm not.
All right, thank you.
Chuck? Make sure the mic's on, Chuck. Okay.
In many towns,
It always looks like it's on and it's not.
thank you. In many towns, there is much to be done and too few to do it. I'm glad that you have stepped forward and have begun your participatory role in the intricacies of Merrimack, and I wish you well.
Thank you.
Cinda?
So if you own your own business, you're probably not used to this interview kind of concept, are you?
My first interview in 10 years.
So I applaud you for that. Also, thanks for stepping up. It's neat to see that development, like you mentioned, where you were involved as a high school student and then moving your interest into your adult life. So I think that that's great. I guess my question would be, if you weren't selected now, would you put your name on the in the hat for the next upcoming election for an open position?
Yes, I don't see a reason why I wouldn't. I have every intention of being involved in the community, so.
Great, thanks.
Chuck?
I'm all set.
Anybody else have any other questions for David? I would like to thank you for stepping up to the plate. The last time we went through this process, it was like pulling nails to get anybody for this very high-paying job.
Yes.
We double our salary every year.
You guys give the big checks, right?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, you know, we might sign off on $65 million, but we don't get any of it. That's by state law.
Yes.
You have 3 young children, and they're coming up through the school district. Do you feel that with that coming along, that will help your participation with the budget committee process?
Definitely. I think, yeah, it's definitely yes.
I notice on your letter, you talk about you're going for a master's degree in finance, and I was wondering how that was coming along for you.
Good. I've completed 2 courses for it so far, 4.0 so far. I took a little break with the 3 kids and everything. I just felt take a term off, but I'll be back into it, I think, October? End of October, maybe November. I'm not sure when the next term starts.
And this might seem like a really strange question, but is your wife in support of you doing this?
My wife, yes, bless her for it. She's home right now, trying to put a teething, growing baby to bed. 4 and 3-year-old who think wrestling is the only thing they should be doing at 8 o'clock at night, and yeah, she's on board. I mean, she knows the importance of school and being part of the community and setting that example for the kids. So.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
If you would shut that
Yes.
mic off, please. I don't see any other questions from anybody, or, oh, I'm sorry. Not for him. Oh, okay. Yes, Carol.
I don't have the 2 letters with me, and I can't remember. Did Mark state in his letter what age his children are?
Yes, he did. Whoops. Yeah, I got to turn my mic on. His children are freshmen and sophomores in high school, and his wife works at Master Kohler Elementary School,
Okay, thank you.
full-time. Cinda?
So my question is, if David were selected, he'd join us for the duration of our meeting? Is that how that would work? Or?
That is correct. We have the ability, because our minute taker is the school district clerk, to swear a person in if they are here. And then they would serve until the next election, which is in April of 2015. Any questions or comments about Mark or David? I don't see any. Go around one more time. Would anybody like to make a motion? Carol?
Yeah, I'll move to appoint David to the open
Okay.
position.
And it doesn't need to be seconded because it's for an office. Are there any other nominations? Mr. Cummings?
I'd like to nominate Mark Gomes Caceres for the position as
Okay.
well. I realize that Mark is not here, but I know he was, I know he had put his letter in. I think it was the first one to be in, and unfortunately, being out of town on business is just the roll of the dice, but I'd like to have him considered.
Okay. So we have both gentlemen are nominated to fill the position. Did I see your hand go up, Rick?
Well, no, but I do have a quick question.
Yes.
Which of the 2 candidates was the one that was here at the last meeting?
That was Mark.
That was Mark, okay.
They were both, I was told there was nothing happening at the last meeting. And they had no obligation to be here at all. Any other comments or discussion? Carol?
It's certainly not a huge factor, because I know several of us on the committee, our kids are already grown and out of the school system. However, I do think it's a plus in David's side that his children are young, so he's going to be much more involved in day-to-day things with the school over the next few years, so that sort of, in my mind, tilts it slightly in his favor, so that's the main reason I'm supporting him. Not to imply that either candidate isn't qualified, I think they both are.
Anybody else? Bill?
David, I just met you this evening. I'm glad you came forward. I was sincere about that. I've known Mark Caceres while his daughter goes to school with my daughter, so I've known him, well, since they were that tall, so about 10 years or so. And I think it strikes me that Mark is looking for new ways to be of service to the community. I think that should be given some attention. I mean, anybody that worked on the EdCAC, it's an advisory committee. There's no budget. There's nothing. It's just simple advisory. And he called me looking for some information on the budget committee and how he could be involved, and really took the time to. We were on the phone for about 45 minutes talking about different things, and he had a lot of questions. So, unfortunately, he's not here this evening, but I just thought I would speak on his behalf. Thank you.
Okay. Comment that I have, and Carol started on it. David, you do have 3 young children coming up into the school system, and I think that is a plus. I also think that the other plus on David's side is that he works a day job 5 miles down the road, and I think it's about 5 miles, 6 miles? Yeah.
It's about 12, I drive every day.
Yeah, so it's 6 miles each way, something like that? Well, I'm talking from, from here. And you work regular type of hours. And I think that that's an advantage because there's more probability that David will be available for the evening meetings or when we're doing our liaison assignments. And it's probably going to be, I personally feel, a little easier for him to get here. And where this is it's a short-term appointment until the next election, I would be inclined to suggest David because of that, and given that he is taking master's level classes and he does have a bachelor's in business administration that he's pointed out, I think that that's a help also for us as a group of 12 volunteers. Any other comments? All right. What I'm going to do is we're going to do a roll call vote because you can only vote for one person. And when Pat calls your name, please state which person you want to fill the position of. Pat, would you do the roll call vote, please?
I don't have one. Mr. Bobbitt.
David.
Mr. Mower. Mr. Barnes.
is a tough one. I'm gonna go with Mark.
Mrs. Lang,
David?
Mr. Scarda,
Mark.
Mr. Cummings,
Mark Casseres.
Mrs. Guagliumi,
David Elg.
thank you. Mr. Heinrich,
David.
Mr. Hanson,
David?
I get 6 for David and 4 for Mark.
Okay, that means that David is appointed to the Budget Committee. I will notify Mark of the decision, and I will also encourage him to run in the April election. I would like to ask the school district clerk to please swear David in at this time so he can take a seat at the table for our next thing. And we will do this with the Budget Committee staying in session. So if you would go to a microphone, we would most appreciate it. Well, we want his wife to see it on TV.
To recite the thing for him. I state your name.
I, David Ilk,
Do solemnly and sincerely
do solemnly and sincerely
swear and affirm
swear and affirm
to faithfully and impartially serve as a member of the School District Budget Committee,
to faithfully and impartially serve as
a member
As a
of
member
the
of the
School
school-
District Budget
School
Committee,
District Budget Committee,
agreeably to the laws and the Constitution of the State of New Hampshire,
agreeable to the laws and Constitution of the United States, the state of New Hampshire.
That
And the
too.
United States. We'll do that.
so help you God.
So help me God.
All right, at this time, we're going to do introductions again so that David can at least get an idea of who's who. Bill, would you start us off, please?
Oh, sure, absolutely. David, my name is Bill Cummings. I've been on the Budget Committee. This is my third term, the last year of a third term, and having a great time. Learned a lot. Don't be afraid to ask questions. There is no stupid question, as I tell my kids. So.
Hey, David, congratulations. My name's John Hanson. New to the School Budget Committee myself, so we'll be learning together, I guess.
Hi, congratulations. I'm Shelley Jacoby. I'm new as well, so I look forward to working with you.
Hi, I'm Kevin Bobbitt. I'm also new, so this is the new wing. So we're all learning. Welcome.
Rick Barnes. I've been on the committee several years. I think 7, maybe. This is my last year of the term I'm in now. I'm also serving on the library trustees as well.
And Rick is also the vice chair.
And my wife is also on the school board, too.
Oh.
So,
And I've already met you. I'm Stan Heinrich. I'm the chairman. I've been here since 1987.
Hi, congratulations. I'm Carol Lang. I think you'll find it an interesting experience. You learn a lot, and often each person, I think, brings their own perspective to this committee, and often somebody will bring up something that none of the rest of us thought about. So never be afraid to voice your opinion, even if it may not sound like it quite is in tune with everyone else. You never know when something will be of benefit for us to hear about. So good luck.
Hi, Dave. I'm Chuck Mower. Welcome aboard.
Congratulations. I'm Cinda Guagliumi. I had just finished one term on the Budget Committee, which ended last year, and I'm now the school board liaison to the Budget Committee.
Welcome. Chuck Scarda. It's my third year on the Budget Committee.
A couple of other things before we go on to our next item. Lisa Mooney is excused if she doesn't make it before we end. And anybody else is classified as absent at this point. Yes, Rick?
Do we have extra copies of the printouts for?
That came from Matt. I do not know where it is. It wasn't given to me. I think Pat might have one. I do not know.
Thank
Yep.
And we'll have a sign for you when you come to the next meeting. Now I'd like to ask Matt Chevenel to come on up. Matt's going to do our 2013-2014 fiscal year budget review at this point in time. So Matt, it's all yours.
Well, good evening, everybody. I have been here for 15 years now. I am the business administrator for the Merrimack School District. Give some background info on myself, seeing there's some new faces here. Before that, I was the BA for Jaffrey Ringe School District for 2 years, and then I was the finance director for the town of Hooksett for 8 years. So I have experience on both the municipal side and the school side, mostly on the school side right now. I'm here to give you the year-end review. That's something we do every year to kind of start things off with the new group, to kind of give you an idea how we wound up and closed out the last fiscal year. You see that there are two items over here, an appropriation surplus and a revenue surplus. When you build a budget, that's a hard number. Our operating budget for the general fund is $64,057,076. Conversely, on the revenue side, you have to raise $64,057,076.41, and that's the revenues that we estimate. A lot of that is through taxation. A lot of that is through, well, a minimal amount of that is through the state adequacy money that we get, the catastrophic aid revenue that we get from the state, and other grants that we get along the way. So when you underexpend your budget, you have an appropriation surplus. When you collect more money than you thought you would have in the beginning of the year, because you estimate your revenues, you have a revenue surplus. The two of them together add up to the total surplus that you have at the end of the year. It's called now unassigned fund balance. Really, that is just surplus money. And what happens to that is it goes to reduce the tax rate that we're going to be setting in October. So all of that money that's left over at the end of the year goes to reduce your tax rate that's coming out in the fall. That is a pretty large sum as far as historically it goes, and it couldn't have come at a better time. We're at a crossroads right now where in this next coming year we're going to lose $1 million in state adequacy money. So that's good while we have this $4.8 million here. We're also, I found out today, worst case scenario, going to be collecting around $600,000 less in catastrophic aid than we did last year. Catastrophic aid is the amount of money that the state reimburses you for special ed tuitions over and above 2.5 times the state average. You get that the following year. But even though that figure would probably be around $1.3 million, they don't have to fund it 100% if they don't have the money. So they can fund it at 90% or they can fund it at around 60%. And they give us a range of what we can pick. And we're always, being conservative as far as our revenues go, because we wouldn't want to get into a position where we underestimate a revenue and we still come in under budget and we wind up in a deficit situation. That's not a good feeling for anyone to be in. So the catastrophic aid situation, and I just forwarded all that information to the town, got that information today, is going to be one that hopefully will come in more than we estimate, but we'll just have to wait and see how the year goes. It's nothing hard and fast, even though they have a formula. They can fund it at one level or another level, depending upon how much money they have. That's the luxury that the state has. Yes, sir.
Matt, could you please explain to us, if we found ourselves in the unenviable position of a deficit, what would be the remedy for that deficit?
Well, first of all, you violate the RSAs. So the superintendent would have to write a letter to the Department of Education, the commissioner, requesting approval because of these set of circumstances. They would probably agree with the findings, whatever the rationale would be. Let's say, we underestimated our revenues. And then what would happen is on the next year's ballot, there would be a question to raise and appropriate the sum that you were short the previous year. That could come as one remedy. Another remedy is to try and make it up over the course of your fiscal year that you're in. So what you could do is you could freeze all supplies, freeze all purchases as far as textbook goes, freeze all field trips to try and build up enough money to cover that deficit that was from the prior year. So there's one of two strategies. Either you have a warrant article to raise and appropriate it with more taxes, or you go into your operating budget and say, we're not going to do this, 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 and this. It's going to wind up to be $1 million, and therefore that's how we're going to get from point A to point B.
And if the voters did not see fit to support a supplemental budget,
that's what we do.
then it would be strictly a matter of a tourniquet on everything.
Absolutely. Spring would come around and, school would open and we'd freeze the budget.
So really, it's not a question of being in an unenviable situation. It's really a question of an intolerable situation, which we must take great pains to avoid at all costs.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah. Didn't mean to start on such a dire note, Yeah, it's a good surplus, and I can go down let me go down the appropriation side, then I'll explain the revenue. Professional salaries, we have the detail in the back, but I'll just talk off the first page. Professional salaries, we have ones that teachers that come and go. That's the majority of our budget anyway. We have teachers that left that were at the higher end of the pay scale. We had those refill their positions at the lower end of the pay scale, resulting in around a $500,000 surplus. We have a small surplus in the performance pay retirement incentive area. Support staff salaries also. We could have a custodian who's been here for 15, 20 years, and he retires, and you hire a custodian that's on step one, even though they've had, let's say they've been a custodian at McKelvey School up in Bedford for 15 years. When they start here, they start at the bottom rung, and then they work their way up. There's no tenure or any credit for prior service in the same kind of job position given. So that's why we had a surplus in that area. Benefits, we had a slight savings in health insurance and a corresponding savings in FICA and retirement, because they're all a function of the salaries that you pay. The biggest savings is in the area of maintenance. There was a roofing project that was in the budget that the board chose not to do at that time, and so that added up to around probably $400,000 of that savings. The other area was in electricity, that we had savings also. The special education area, you have a philosophy here in Merrimack where we tried to keep kids in-house. It's the best for them. They're with their peers, they're with their friends, they're with their students who, share the neighborhood with. We try to avoid all out-of-district placements. Out-of-district placements can run anywhere from $40,000 to well over $300,000 per child if it's a residential placement. Placement like Crotched Mountain, where they would stay, that's probably around $275,000 a year. That's why we have a special ed capital reserve fund that has around $400,000 in it right now, that if we do get something unexpected, we can dip into that. School board is the agents to expend. We've done that once. I think we took $136,000 out of that to meet the needs of somebody moving into district who we didn't know was out there. You have some that come in from other districts that you hadn't planned on, and you have, a few that move away. So even though we build a special ed budget based upon our current population and trying to predict where they're going to be next year, sometimes we predict that, hey, we're not going to need that residential placement because we can build a program in-house to have the child here at school. And that's where they want to be, here at school. And that's the best thing that, as far as our philosophy goes, for them. Basically, a lot of the laws around special education, it's all governed by the federal government and New Hampshire state statutes. New Hampshire actually has laws that are more stringent than the federal government, and we have to abide by those. It's all driven by what's in the student's individualized education program, because each one of them has that specifically tailored to them so they can get the most out of their stay with us. It starts at age 3 to age 21. That's when they age out of the system, so to speak. Contracted services, you can see there's a little bit left over in there. Equipment repairs, that was the savings in that area. We finally started a it's not a capital reserve fund, but putting in the capital improvement plan, which I'll talk to you about later on, a certain amount of money to replace our network infrastructure. You think of us as a school, we've got 6 buildings. We have well over 1,500 computers. We probably have 25 computer closets. We have around 72 switches making everything run. We've got fiber going from here to the Master Cola complex. We're a large corporation as far as the technology goes. We did some upgrades to the switches. We had switches that were 8, 9 years old. We've replaced those. They kept failing. So by investing in our own infrastructure and getting things up to par, we've saved ourselves some money in repairs and buying things unexpectedly. So I think our uptime this past year was a lot better in prior years. And we all do this with a team of one network administrator and one computer technician for the entire district, for the entire 1,500 computers and all the programs that they run, like our student information system. If you're a parent, you've probably gone onto PowerSchool, looked at your children's grades. We were one of the early adopters as far as that software goes. We paid the price. I paid the price for that. A lot of gray hair here because of it, but it has really kind of groomed itself along the way into a very nice system that works well. And there's a lot of people. It's the predominant system in the state right now. There are PowerSchool user groups going on in Bedford each month. They have meetings and share best practices as far as how to get information, how to make it more streamlined. We're looking at things every day to try and make the data that it collects and the experience for the parent and the student better in the system. It also runs our budgeting software, accounts payable, accounts receivable, everything like that. Runs the practically, the camera equipment that's on the network. Everything that we have that's electronic is basically on our network and runs over our cables right here. So it's an important asset to look out to and to plan for the future to make sure it's up and running. You look down at some of the other accounts, fairly low. Transportation kind of came in a little bit lower than contract. A couple of years ago, we signed a new transportation contract with Student Transportation of America. That has suited us very well. And we signed a new contract with the provider for our special ed transportation that served us very well in saving us some money and providing a much more better level of service than we had in the past. Both companies have done an exceptional job. You see, we have the area of supplies, text, software. The only other item, because somebody asked me, I think of the board, do we look at refinancing our debt? And we do pretty much every year if it's advantageous, and it went down a couple of points, so we did a little refi, and we saved around $20,000 on one of the bond issues. As far as our debt in the district, right now you've got to look a little bit forward, probably 9 years from now. We'll be debt-free. All the bond issues will be gone. We won't have any more. That depends on, what happens in the next couple of years, but right now, if no new issues go out, we'll be debt-free in 2023. I can remember that number because it rhymes, and so it's easy for me to just kind of pick out of my head. Part of what we have in the revenue surplus that $2.4 million that you're looking at, $1.5 million came from the health insurance trust settlement that we got. The health insurance trust used to be part of a triad of endeavors called the Local Government Center. Under the Local Government Center was the Health Insurance Trust, the Property and Liability Insurance Trust, and the Workers' Comp Insurance Trust. What was found out through a series of legal issues, lawsuits, whatnot, to get the local government center to open their books to the public, which they did not want to do at the time. And this was all crafted by the firefighters union back a few years ago that got them to crack the books open and have the public take a look at. And what they found out is their property and liability line wasn't doing that well. Their real competitor was a company called Primex, which we get our property and liability insurance from. And they were trying to buy some business by undercutting Primex, and therefore that sector was in the red. So to bring it into the black, what happened was that the money collected from the health insurance premiums that we had paid over the course of a number of years was transferred into the property and liability section. Yes, you raise your eyebrows, you should raise your eyebrows. I kind of had that feeling, and I tell that to a lot of people all along, that something just wasn't right, and that's what it was. So what they were doing is taking our premiums that we were paying all these years, and they were putting it into the property and liability fund, which we never belonged to. So therefore, we received a settlement of $1.5 million. So that alone added to that $2.4 million revenue surplus that you see before you that adds to the 4.8. So that was something that was not expected.
Matt, have you gotten the full check for that yet?
Have I gotten the full check for it? Yes, I have. It's cashed. Yeah,
Thank you.
It went in the bank right away before anything. We're having another one of those this year, too. That's the second part of the settlement. We weren't quite sure what that was, but I'll name that at the next board meeting. But it was something that has been going along a long time, and to have, once the merger took place, like I said, there was shoddy bookkeeping and the board of directors making decisions that probably weren't qualified or probably weren't aware that when you create 3 distinct business entities, you have to have some disclosures as far as where's the money go. And you can't take my money or your money that was given to them for one purpose and use it for another purpose. It's a diversion of funds. And that's what they got found out to be doing, hence the large rate increases that perhaps we got in the past. I remember walking into a budget committee meeting years ago, having to say the health insurance went up 26%, and the air just went out of the room. And everybody kind of looked at me, and I'm like, it's not my fault, I didn't do it. But
It was a less percentage here than it was for the town.
Yeah, that's true. Those were bad days, and you were sitting in that chair, and you remember them, and I think Mrs. Lang was there also. And, now we're looking at a little bit more moderate type increases.
In regard to the surplus refund, did any of that money that came back go to the employees that paid, the higher premiums?
Yes. We both cut reimbursement checks to them, and we did a contribution holiday. So for a couple of pay periods, they would have no deduction taken out of their paycheck. That was the easiest way. There was a second part of it which required us to actually cut checks to those people who were in the system. It would have been easier to do the contribution holiday, but these were for a lot of people who had moved on and were no longer working for us. So we had to go that route, and we checked it out with the NEA, and we came to an agreement that was the best way to handle it at the time, to just do that second wave with the checks. But the employees did get their money back. And the thing is that really kind of bothered me is in order to get this 1.5 million, you had to be a member of the trust as of 2011. So towns like Peterborough, Salem, Wyndham, few more, they were members of the local government center and the health insurance trust for 20 years. Because of the rates, they dropped out at 2010. Yeah, I know. And because they weren't members in 2011, they didn't get any of the refund. They're also challenging that, as I would if I were sitting in one of those districts right now, because they too also were overbilled, and there should be some settlement there. So that's an issue that's probably still outstanding, and I hope they win their battle, because it just doesn't seem fair that you were customers for 20 years. The year before, you finally said enough is enough, and then once everything is brought to the light and these refunds were given out in 2011, and you had to be a member in 2011, you're kind of saying, but I paid you extra for 20 years. That's not worth anything at all. So
Now, should they prevail, is that going to affect the refund that you have already got in cash?
no, not that we already have.
Okay, so that doesn't affect you.
No, it's not going to affect the refund we already have. Be kind of tough to do that.
Well, I happen to agree, but I was just,
Yeah.
wondering if you have to keep a portion of it around just in case.
Yeah, no, that's already come and gone, so it wouldn't affect anything. And they wouldn't, I don't think the courts would allow them to increase rates on us to pay their back claims. They'd have to find it through other means. Cost cutting would be nice.
Yeah, they could get rid of the $10,000 desk and the Ferrari company car.
Well, at one point in time, they did build themselves a very nice, area up there in Concord where they used to kind of operate out of one of the downtown factories that were there, years ago. But that's neither here nor there at this time. So there's a lot of intrigue in my world here, and that was one of them. And I remember when Marge, the superintendent, gave me this news, I just was like, I knew it. And it was a good feeling to get the check in the mail and to put it in the bank and to make
frame
right.
it,
Make
put a
right
copy
was
of it on the wall.
yeah, make right was what was wrong.
Bill, you had a question or a comment?
Is it okay to ask you questions as we go?
Absolutely. I'm here at your
Congratulations
disposal.
on the surplus. I don't know whether that's appropriate comment, but it looks.
was good
looks nice.
timing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good. Just a couple of things, Matt. One thing is, can you explain item 17, just the logic behind, does it just happen to be $1 there? Is that like a holding, or it seems kind of
It does, doesn't it?
peculiar?
In the operating budget, we have a line item. It says transfer to food service, which is another fund.
Mhm.
So I just kind of lumped it in that, transfer to capital reserve. There's $1 in there for food service that we didn't transfer to them. Remember a few years ago when food service ran a minor deficit and we had to transfer money?
Mhm.
It's just $1 to keep the line open.
I see.
So we didn't make the transfer because we didn't have to, and so those are funds that we discontinued. There were 3 of them at the time that we voted last April to discontinue.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm curious about refinancing a bond issue. That's kind of, I never thought that was possible. How does that work? Do you have a closing? I mean, do you pay points or what?
I don't have to do too much work
Okay.
at that at all. It's one of these things where I get a call from the bond bank. They said they can arrange it. You know, do you want to go forward? I says, absolutely. I don't have to sign anything. I don't have to do pretty much any work whatsoever other than agree to take the money. And it doesn't extend the amount of payments you're making. You're still on the same payment schedule. It just gives you this 1-year infusion of cash. And so it's something that you just say thank you and you don't turn down.
Okay. So in regard to the $1.5 million that came back, I know there was the contribution holiday you mentioned.
Yep.
Right? How many checks and what did the checks look like, the refunds?
Well, the checks were anywhere from $400 to, let's say, $168 per person. The net was, we paid out around $400,000, and so the net was around 1.1.
Okay.
So
Very good.
that
Thank you.
probably answers the question that you were going to ask me next, so I figured I'd just go for that one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we go on? Carol?
Yeah, I have a couple. One is, was there any auditing done, whether it be at the state level or in district or anything, to see whether on that local government center refund, whether we actually got back something equivalent to what we had overpaid?
It's really hard to do. I'm assuming that it was looked at by the state and their audit team and everything like that. We got a detailed printout of everything per person that they gave us, so they could show backup as to how they arrived at the contribution. You know, our overpayment, the employees' overpayment, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, it's kind of hard to prove, but it was, the total amount that they diverted over the years was $17 million. So I think us getting $1.5 million of that over the entire state, not too bad. But I'm not quite sure about the oversight committee that put that number together, but I got to feel fairly confident that they did a good and fair and accurate job on that, because I saw the detail, and it didn't look like anything out of line to me.
I was mostly getting at that I was hoping, and from what you're saying, it sounds like that's the case, that there wasn't any agreements struck where they said, okay, we'll give you back 70 cents on the dollar or something like that.
None that I heard of.
Okay.
None that I heard of.
Has there ever been any talk where they keep reducing catastrophic aid? Can we make any case for that being an unfunded mandate?
Well, back in, gosh, I want to say 1987, federal government was supposed to fund 40% of all special ed. How close have they come?
I haven't been holding my breath.
Okay, 15%, 20%. So if we can't make the feds, you know, go along with their own laws, I think it's kind of impossible to get the state to go along with theirs.
I just didn't know, because
But
the state's a smaller entity. If a bunch of
It is
school
a small,
districts got together
it is a
and
smaller
pressured
entity,
them.
but the way the laws are written, they have, you know, they have discretion over it. You know, they can name the figure. I mean, it's a calculation you can do. And it's not an easy calculation, because you have to go through several different clients that you have, basically. But you can do the calculation, and then you can figure out what you should be getting, and that's always pretty much spot on, but then they can fund a percentage of it.
Right.
Same thing with building aid,
Yeah.
state program.
Yeah.
They don't have the money, they back into a formula that makes the amount of money fit what they're going to give you.
The only difference is we can at least decide whether to build or not. We can't decide whether or not to provide special ed services.
That's correct.
We've got to.
And as far as, for all intents and purposes, building aid is a program that, you could count on for like 30 years. There was building aid there. But there is no building aid anymore. That's a program that's gone. There's talk about bringing it back in some fashion. What that would be, I have no idea. But right now, there is no such thing as building aid. The building aid you see that we get are for prior projects.
Right. And thank God we built some of those when we did, because
Yeah,
it would
yeah.
be costing us a lot more now.
You talk, on the ballot last year, there was a superintendent's office on there. It got a simple majority, but it didn't get the 66,
60%.
60%, yeah, thank you, 60%, 3/5, that it needed to pass. Now, if it would have been done years earlier, the amount of building aid you get on that would be 40%.
Right.
So you'd be paying 60 cents on the dollar to build a new soup's office.
Right.
Now, if you're going to do that, you're paying for all of it. So,
Another question, the roof that the school board opted not to do, do you have a ballpark idea how much, I'm assuming it will go up, not down, how much more it will cost to do it?
it was probably in the $50,000-$60,000 range. But we're combining it with a whole new project that I'll get to at the end.
Yeah.
Because I want to show you the capital improvement program while I'm here, because that's an important thing, because you'll be hearing about those large ticket items when we start the budget process, and I don't want it to be a surprise.
Okay.
And for those of you that weren't on the committee last year, the money that the school board did not spend was the money that this budget committee added to the bottom line of the budget for some roof replacement, because they felt it was important. The voters overwhelmingly approved it, and the school board decided they weren't going to spend it. They had the money, they decided not to spend it. They had their reasons, but they decided not to spend it, even though the money was there.
I have a couple more. These are quick questions. Did I hear correctly? I was watching a school board meeting fairly recently, and I thought I heard somebody say we're still using some Pentium 4 computers. Do you know if that's true?
Pentium 4s, there should not be a 1 in this district. If there is, it needs to be purged.
I believe I heard that when...
Some of the staff hang on to those because they run programs that kids are used to seeing.
Right. Well, this was in the context when they were talking about using the computers to do the testing for Smarter Balance. And somebody mentioned that some of the computers were Pentium 4s, and my ears kind of went up like, what?
Well, that could be, in the storeroom, if we could breathe life into them, and if there are some hanging around. This whole Smarter Balance testing thing is, trying to amass the greatest amount of computers and come up with a plan to run everybody through this testing course, so to speak. And, perhaps if we have some of those still in service, we would definitely use them if they would, do the trick just to get people through the test.
I'm just hesitant if we're actually relying on those once we have to do this testing. When it's not a pilot, we have to do this. If we're relying on that age computer,
Yeah.
It kind of makes me a little shaky.
If they are, they're few and far between. If they're just holdovers from, but this runs this one program, so
Yeah.
I have to have it,
Right. And I'm
kinda
guilty of that
things.
myself. I know I do it too.
Okay.
And this, I don't know if you have the numbers with you. Do you happen to have with you the numbers for the balances in the capital reserve funds?
Not off the top of my head. Let's say special ed's probably around 400,000. Roofing, there's nothing, few thousand there. Paving, few thousand there. nothing too significant. We're drawing down the emergency repair fund to take care of the bleachers. If you go next door, you can see new bleachers there, to around maybe $20,000, so we'll have to look at beefing that up. We do have probably $40,000. We had a fund, remedial reading and math fund, because that was in the days when we were in fear of them taking away Title I services for that program, so we could fund that, and we did dip into that along the way. But as far as capital reserve funds, other than special ed, there's nothing that we have that's really significant.
Okay. And kind of tagging on to that, what I was pondering, but I suspect it's too late to do it, where we got that big refund from local government center, and it was really attributable to healthcare premiums. I was wondering if there was a way to stash some of that refund in a fund that would help offset years that the health insurance premiums hike.
Well, for one thing, I don't use the word stash.
Okay, that probably wasn't the best choice
All
of
right.
words,
And,
but I meant it in the good sense.
I know you did. I
You
know
meant to
I'm
say place it into a
Yeah,
fund, I believe,
I'm
Carol.
playing with you,
I
Carol. Okay. And the only way you could do that, and it's legal to create a health insurance expendable trust fund. So those years where you have high premiums, you could take money out of that and offset those high premiums to try and keep the tax rate stable.
And normally I wouldn't even be thinking about it, except that because we got that big refund, I thought, wow, here is a large sum of money coming in, and we'd actually be applying it towards a similar expense in other years. So I thought, boy, that seems like...
It's much in the same way that you have the capital reserve fund for the special ed
Yeah,
fund.
yeah.
It's an expendable trust. It's for school purposes. It's in the RSAs. It's legal that you can do that.
It's just food for thought, you know.
But it'd have to be a warrant article. Obviously,
Right.
boards would have to be the agents to expend and everything like
Yeah.
that.
And I would assume, although obviously individuals can put forward warrant articles, but something like that would probably go over better if it originated at the school board level. You know, So, for what it's worth, maybe Cinda can discuss it with her fellow board members at some point and see if there's any interest in it.
We have a
That's-
lot of things to
yeah.
discuss this year, so,
So that's the end of my long list.
okay.
Anyone else before we go on? Keep going, Matt.
Could I take you to the last page of the document?
Is it the one that says capital improvement plan?
Yep. Last few years, I've started to share this with the budget committee. You know, my, first view was, do the year-end budget, explain what happened, and then leave. But I think this is very important for you to see because you're going to be hearing about it when you do the budget for 2015, 2016. So, just want to go over a few things. The first item is the HVAC equipment, the air ventilation system. If you recall hearing the loud noise over in this area when you first came into the meeting, where if it was going right now, we couldn't hear one another, that is to replace that unit. What it does is it exhausts air out of the kitchen, and then it brings air into the building. It's an air-to-air exchange system. And that unit is, Tom Tusil will probably correct me, but I think it's vintage 1970s. So we have gotten...
It's over 30 years old.
It's over 30 years old. It's old enough to vote and drink and whatever. And we've really gotten we've gotten all the useful life we can out of that unit. And it's time to replace. I mean, it's almost, you can't get parts for it. It's getting even to spots where you can't even weld it anymore. So it's going to be taken offline, and it's going to have to be replaced. That kind of goes with the roofing, because that's where the roofing is going to be, because the unit's right up top over there. And so we would be doing the roofing over this area, the kitchen area, and headed towards the gym for $856,000. Next year, there's, I think the board's committed to putting the consolidation of the SAU offices and special ed offices on the ballot. And I have to remind people that this is a capital improvement plan. It's not a spending plan. The net effect of this, depending upon how long the district would want to go for a bond on this, you wanted to go 10 years or 5 years or whatever, you can do that. And it would probably coincide nicely with the dropping off of the debt in 2023, so we could still hit that goal. But it could, the first year is just a half year's interest payment, so the impact would be probably around $35,000. Then it goes up to around, let's say, $300,000, then it declines. So that would be the spending plan. The technology infrastructure upgrade, that's what I had talked about before, where we had servers and switches and whatnot that needed to be replaced. We also are expanding our Wi-Fi capabilities throughout the building. It's something new and different to us. It's terrific for kids who we purchase iPads for, especially, remember with the ARRA money that we had years ago, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. We bought a lot of iPads and whatnot that we use in the special ed program because that money was specific to special ed. We couldn't spend it on anything else. And so we have those devices. We have the expansion of wireless throughout our building, which still takes cabling because you have to hardwire the wireless access point to the switch or router or whatever. It goes 300 feet back into the closet. And so that's really helping out with the program there to have that wireless access. And I'm sure, John Fabrizio, when he comes before you and explains his budget, will have some stories to tell that's been very, very successful in kind of gaining children's attention who otherwise you wouldn't think you would get. And so the payback is really good in a number of areas as far as that goes. So that's basically 2015, 2016. You see, as we go right, we have some more areas we're going to look at. The roofing continues on for a while. We do hit a spot where roofing stops for a period of 10 years, and then it starts back up again, because the roofing materials we're using right now have like a 35-year warranty, whereas in the past they only offered perhaps a 15-year warranty on the roofs, and then after that you owned it and you had to pay for the repairs. That doesn't mean that the roof was not valid or stable. It just means that you had some leaks and you had to deal with it, like maintenance items, inconvenience items that you had to deal with. And so that plan's going to keep going on. And then paving, we definitely want to do something with the Thornton's Ferry Circle. If you've been around that lately, you'll see why. And the bus loop out front here, perhaps O'Gara Drive at one point, and then we come down in 16, 17. The board will probably be having a discussion on this for the Merrimack High School track. There's been portions of that that have showed some delamination over the last couple of months with the changing of weather. Basically, what you're looking at is you're looking at an asphalt base that's covered with a rubberized surface. You get a little hole in the rubberized surface. Water gets underneath there, freezing and thawing over the years, and all of a sudden you get some delamination of the rubber surface to the asphalt surface, and you get to a point where a piece comes off. And we just had it repaired last week. Around $2,000-3,000 we put into it, just to get us through the rest of the year till the winter comes. There's not any track meets or anything like that, but people do use it, the public, to walk. We want to make sure it's safe for them. And then we'll do another evaluation in the springtime before the track season hits, to see what we can do at that point in time. So it may be something that the board will be discussing in the future, nearer than 2016, 2017. And, as we go out, one of the good things I can say is the asbestos removal. You remember how many years ago we started that? 17, 18, we'll have no more known asbestos. I have to say that because Tom Tussaud is probably looking over my shoulder somewhere, because you can always find asbestos someplace. It's like when we did the renovation to the upper elementary school, the entrance. We replaced the doors, and Tom's looking at it, and he says, "I don't like the look of that caulking in those doors." And I says, "What do you mean, Tom?" He says, "I think there's asbestos in the caulking." And I says, "Really?" He says, "Really." I said, "Okay, call him up." So we call up our company that does testing for that, and lo and behold, he was right. So you have to get that remediated. They come in and they have their protective gear, and they take all the caulking out and make it safe for us to remove the doors. So there'll be minor instances like that if we do renovations. But as far as all the known stuff that we have and have been tested for, that'll be totally eradicated. And that was probably, a good 10 years that we started this, to go through it.
10 or 12 years?
10 or 12 years, piece by piece by piece. It was basically the floor tiles. They were 9x9 floor tiles. They wore like iron. Asbestos was like the greatest material in the world because it never wore out. The bad side is it really killed people in the end. It caused cancer. And so that's why it had to be taken out of the schools or every building has to be taken out of, and replaced with the newer tiles that don't have it in there. And even the glue that held the tiles to the floor, that had asbestos in it also. So it just was a matter of popping tiles. It was a matter of coming in with these solutions and tenting off an area and putting ventilation in, and it's quite a process. So we'll be done with that in a few years. So that's the CIP kind of in a nutshell. Last year's budget in a nutshell. Look forward to working with you guys for 2015, 2016, and I'll sit here as long as you like, and you can ask me any questions that you care to.
Questions? Chuck Scarta.
So the roofing project that was not done this year, is that part of this for next year?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that was rolled up into that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Caroline.
Yeah, this is only ever so slightly really directly related to the Budget Committee. It does have some impact on the budget, but I'm kind of throwing it out more just as a point of information. I've heard talk, both from Planning and Building Committee and the school board, the talk is when we eventually do the field replacement, of the consideration of artificial turf, which at first I thought, great, it will last longer, take less maintenance, that's a wonderful thing from a budget committee point of view. However, recently, I've come across 2 different articles that say now all of a sudden they're finding kids coming down with inordinately high levels of cancer because of the rubber that is the fake soil is apparently, especially in sports like where kids tend to do face plants on it, like a soccer goalie, or I suppose football to a lesser degree, but anyway, that they're now starting to find these elevated levels of cancer, so I certainly would hope we would investigate that before we went down that path.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think that's going to be a lively discussion.
Yeah, I just hadn't heard any mention of this, that I just happened to pick up on 2 different articles. I've forgotten, one I don't remember where I saw it, the other one was on NBC News, that they were talking about it, and they're saying that they're pretty sure that it's that fake soil stuff that is what the thing is doing.
We had someone from Maine Track and Field come to the Planning and Building Committee.
That's correct.
And he had a sample of, he had a cutaway sample of the artificial surface and what goes where. And in between the blades of artificial grass are these little rubber balls, basically, that you have to groom and do whatever, because they drop between the blades of the, I'll call it grass, and get them to stand up like regular turf. So, there is a cost of maintenance. You have to groom those, you have to rake them, you have to make sure they just don't flatten down. So it's not once you put it down, it's cost-free, it'll last for 25 years. That's not the case. It's going to cost you an annual cost to maintain. In the end, you probably, as far as cost goes, you probably break even. But the thing is, you get utilization out of it 24/7. That's your benefit.
Yeah. And I don't know how prevalent this stuff is, but I've seen it on 2 different reports now, so, I certainly wouldn't want to be putting something down there if it truly does pose a risk to the students, so.
Yeah, and that'll be a question we'll ask the turf people. They've done, the ones that we talked to have done most of the NFL teams. Remember a couple of years ago, you football fans out there, Bob Kraft had a natural grass surface, and it was laid down with sod, and it was all breaking apart. And he called up these people and said, by next weekend, I want a new artificial surface. And they said, well, that's quite a tall order to do in a week. And he says, I want it done, period. And so they worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they got it done for the New England Patriots. So, that's the type of company we're going to be talking with. And, they sell the stuff, so they're going to have their own opinions. So we have to do our own independent research on this to find out, it's like anything, time goes long enough, and you find out what you were doing 20 years ago is not good for you anymore. And that's valid, too. So
Carol,
you don't know.
One of the things School Planning and Building Committee, which I am a member of, did in its research was they found that, number one, over the course of, say, 10 years, the maintenance dollars that you're going to spend, it's about the same, but you're using it for different things. You're using it to sweep. You wash it or disinfect it if you want to. But the lines, you don't have to buy as much lime to put lines in, because they're painted on and they're in the fabric, and you can line the field as a multi-use field. And as Matt had mentioned, the availability of the field for a lot more things and a lot more times during the year. The field out back here has been ravaged, especially in the middle. And that's one of the problems with it. Plus, you have sports for the high school, and we are, after all, it's the school district's property, where we're sending our students 3-4 miles away to go practice or play a game somewhere on another field, which that expense wasn't factored into any of these other things. So it does give you a lot more advantage, and yes, it means that there is more availability for the townspeople in general to use it. As far as the cancer-causing thing, you know, that's something I think that should be looked into, but I also think that given the amount of artificial surface fields that are out in the United States today, I would think it's an extremely small percentage that you're talking about, and whether they can pinpoint it to the fields or not, I think will be a little bit difficult, because that isn't something that's been brought up before. You haven't seen, I mean, football, probably one of the biggest places that uses it, football and soccer, and you haven't seen an enormous amount of athletes who have been high cancer rates.
This is something that I've only heard it reported very recently, and they were mainly talking about high school-aged kids, and that they were just now starting to see it and trying to figure out that looked like maybe
Was
the
it
cause,
that?
but they didn't
Was it?
know. I
Yeah,
just didn't want
we-
to sink a lot of
we
money
don't
into
know.
something, and 5 years later say, oh, we have to
Yeah.
tear it out because it's bad
The-
for you, so.
The one thing I will disclose is that Planning and Building Committee initially, for a practical purpose, had we were looking at recommending doing the track and the field at the same time because of a cost efficiencies, and it saves some money by doing it at the same time, because you don't have to build some sort of a bridge over your brand new track that you just constructed to allow construction equipment in the middle to put your new field in. And you can't just remove a section and drive through. Track doesn't work like that. But it was decided to try and split it up, at least on the capital improvement plan. What happens in the future, who knows? Cinda?
Yeah, it was a nice segue. I was just going to add to that and say that was just recent, that the school board
Right, they split it.
broke that out
Yeah.
to put the track first, and then moved the field portion back for future consideration, or for future discussions and budgets and whatnot.
And I agree with Matt. When it comes time to discuss that artificial surface field, I think you'd see a full room in the school board and probably in the budget committee if the decision got to us to look at it, whether we would recommend something like that.
Yeah, I foresee that as being very vigorous, and one that I'll just going to be remaining quiet on the sidelines.
I don't blame you one bit. Any other questions or comments from Matt? I only have one thing, and it's not to do with this. I put something on the agenda tonight based on information I had received that you will be giving the budget books, CDs, to the school board on Monday, December 1st, and that the books and CDs will be available for the budget committee on December 2nd. Is that a correct?
That's what I've been told.
Okay, that's what I needed to know.
There it is. Yep.
If
There's your
nobody
answer.
has any other questions for Matt, I would like to, first of all, say thank you. But I'd like to say thank you for working at saving this district a heck of a lot of money and keeping us in the black every year. And as someone who's been looking at these numbers for a while, I really appreciate what you do, and I also know how hard your job is.
No, thank
And
you.
I appreciate it very much.
It's challenging, and that's why I'm still here, because I enjoy it. So
That's why you get to ride the Harley during the summer.
that's true.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next item of business are minutes. We have minutes to approve from June 17th and September 9th. And before we approve the minutes of June 17th, there's a mic on somewhere. There we go. I just wanted to announce that Kevin Bobbitt was listed as absent on June 17th. Upon further investigation, he did make a notification he wasn't going to be there, so he needs to be put in the excused category. And now I'll take a motion to approve the June 17th minutes, 2014. Moved by Mr. Cummings. Do I have a second by Rick Barnes? Any additions, deletions, corrections? Going once? Going twice? All those in favor of the June 17th minutes, please raise your hand. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Passes with 3 abstentions. Everybody else in favor? Next are the minutes of September 9th, 2014. Do I have a motion to approve these minutes? By Bill Cummings, second by Kevin Bobbitt. Any corrections, additions, or deletions? Seeing none. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Passes with 3 abstentions. Everybody else was in favor. Okay. Next on the list. Ideas of how to proceed this year. I had a phone conversation with our superintendent. She's looking to get together with me and with the chairman of the school board to discuss our thoughts, how we want to proceed. Do we want to proceed exactly like we did last year? Do we want to change a few things? And so I'm putting it out to you before I go to meet with them. Anybody have any thoughts? Yes, Carol.
I have 2 contradictory thoughts, because one is based on what's likely and the other one is my ideal. I really, really would love if the school board would take a second look at the idea of allowing any budget committee members who wish to actually ask questions at the meeting rather than just submitting the questions in advance. And perhaps for time constraints, maybe limit it to the topics that are already on the table so we don't go off on a tangent or something. But I would love that. That's my ideal world. I'll be surprised if they'll do it, but I'd sure like it to be broached.
As I remember, I believe they discussed that a little earlier on about this, and the impression I got from listening to some of the comments was that was not something they had a great interest in, because they're looking at the budget from one aspect, we're looking at the budget from a different aspect.
Well, except that I think there's a certain degree of overlap.
Well, there's no question there's a degree of overlap.
I mean, short of that, I don't know, maybe somebody else can recall last year how many people from the budget committee did submit the questions in advance, but to me, I found it very awkward to be able to think of my questions in advance of the meeting, not knowing what was going to be said at the meeting, which would then prompt a question. So I found it kind of an awkward situation. I suppose it's better than nothing, but I felt like it was way short of what I would have considered ideal. I don't know. I think Cinda wants to respond.
Yes, Cinda.
I just wanted to add it was 2 or 3 members that had submitted questions ahead of time. So.
the second piece of that is also, even if you submit a question and they answer it, they may partially miss the drift of where your question was going, and there's no opportunity for a follow-on question. So I'd like to find a way to make it a little more interactive, and I don't know how we can accomplish that.
Bill?
We've still maintained the opportunity to see every department head, though. So a lot of times these questions come forward when the department heads are before the school board, and then we get the department heads here on our own. So I'm just thinking if you are proactive and want to submit the questions and hear your name announced at a school board meeting, or a school board meeting, then go ahead and do that. Otherwise, save your question till they come. And yeah, I think it's a vital part of the process is having the department heads here. Not just the liaison meetings, where we're all participating, going to 3 different things, but actually having them here. So I'm not too worried about it. I think it's really streamlined the process. I mean, Cinda, you've worked with me the last couple of years. I think it's really smoothed it out now, and now you're on the school board. What are your thoughts on how that's worked?
I would say, I personally, like the opportunity to ask the questions while they're here. I didn't submit questions in advance last year because I wanted to go. I did watch all of the school board meetings, and I took in the information in that first round. And then when they were here, I preferred to ask the questions that way in our forum, I guess.
My personal opinion is I think the written questions in advance are somewhat counterproductive. I made a physical choice not to participate in the written questions in advance. I like to ask my question and see the person answer the question from the department. I want to see their face. I want to see their reaction. That's not to say we can't submit questions, but we only had, as Cinda said, it was 2 or 3 people that actually submitted questions. And I'll be honest, it didn't really do anything different for us. As far as participating in the school board meeting, it'd be nice at some point to have like a joint school board meeting with the, a joint meeting with the school board, but the problem is you're going to have 17 people. I watched the school board town council meeting, which I honestly had to laugh at because there was 12 people there, plus I think the town manager, the superintendent, and you got 2 rows of 4 tables down here, and you got some people sitting up on the stage, on the seats that they have there, and it was, to me, it was kind of comical to watch. It didn't seem to be real functional, in my opinion. They would have been much better. Just, you ought to be here. You can have better conversation. All righty. And the other thing that got brought up, that we brought up ourselves last spring, was wanting to take more time. Some people said they felt rushed looking at the budget, doing all of the budget reviews essentially in one night. And so what I'm suggesting is we go back to the 2 nights of presentations. They would, potentially be shorter nights. But we go back to 2 nights and it gives you a little bit more time. Do you feel that that's a good idea or not? If, everybody's changed their mind since then, great. We'll schedule it all for 1, but.
Can I ask you a question, Stan?
Sure.
I know it's kind of hard to answer this off the top of your head, but
I'll give you a snappy answer.
can you come up with a rough concept of when you envision our meetings with the department heads and when you envision our deliberations, so I can kind of make sense of?
I envision the department head meetings sometime in the latter part of December or very early part of January, and starting in the second week Oh, you got one of
Oh,
those nice
beautiful.
things there? That's good. I would envision that we could start meeting probably the week of January 12th. I mean, we could start the 6th, but I think if we started on the 12th, that week, we should be able to finish our work in terms of meetings, of meeting with the departments, having a work session, holding our public hearing as required by law, and we would be done by Valentine's Day, which, thank God, this year is on a Saturday, so we won't be meeting on it. That would be my thought.
Given kind of those parameters, it sounds like we have enough time if we want to do the elongated schedule. It doesn't sound like it's going to be.
Basically, if you add the second night back in, it adds one meeting.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not conflicting with Christmas, New Year's, anything like that by doing this.
Well, I personally don't think you are. You know, I mean, you could potentially meet on a liaison assignment if they chose to before the new year, or, you know, maybe the week before Christmas or something, but if it's something you wanted to, but I don't, you know, you're probably better off meeting, you know, the last week in December, first week in January, and if you're doing the last week in December, it'd obviously be based on, okay, what department heads are in and who is on vacation.
That was part of what I was thinking was availability of staff and also availability of our membership that,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, I don't think there was a problem getting the liaison assignments accomplished last year.
I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. There was one, and I wasn't the lead on it, so I don't recall exactly what the problem was, but there was some problem that came up where it was almost impossible to find a time that was satisfactory both to staff and to the people that were on the liaisons, and I just don't recall the details, but I know it had something to do with the holidays. So I was just trying to avoid that conflict.
Well,
other than that, I think the elongated schedule might be a benefit.
we've been flexible before, we can be flexible again. I just think, I personally think the extra night's good. It makes it a little bit more relaxed when we're doing the budget reviews with the department heads, and it's not as, I won't use the word hectic, but you're not as pressed for time to get them in and out of here. And, you know, and let's face it, sometimes we have next to no questions for the department heads, but sometimes we have more questions for them. We might find this year we're grilling the superintendent's office a lot more than, say, the elementary schools. We don't know till we see the budget. All righty, so seeing, is there any other thoughts? Yes, Rick?
Well, I want to agree with you on that point of, you know, breaking that part up into two meetings, just so that it doesn't feel as rushed, that we have to get through all the departments. I wanted to add on to Carol's earlier point, though, about the emails to, or the questions to the school board. The one advantage I see to that is it also gives the school board the chance to kind of see where the budget committee's focus is a little bit before they pass the budget off to us. So if there's like an issue that some of us on the committee might see as something a little bit questionable, we could submit the questions, and the school board may not have thought of it before they looked at the budget.
Well, as I said, if somebody wants to do a question, you know, they send the question in to me, then I give it over to the superintendent. I don't have a problem with that. I just don't think it's something that we need to say, you must do this, or we encourage you to do it.
I'm just putting my 2 cents
If you
out there.
feel, you know, more comfortable. I feel more comfortable asking the question up front, or having it asked at the liaison meeting, and then it gets brought up at the meeting when we meet with the department. We meet with that department as a whole. Anybody else? Okay. Budget books and CDs. For those of you that are new, you haven't seen the nice little budget book we get every year. It's about 3 inches thick. There is also a CD that you can put in your computer or download to your smartphone these days if you want to. There'd been a push for a couple of years about some people only wanted the CD, some people only wanted the book, some people wanted both. My personal feeling is I think that the new members, take them both. Then you can decide if, in the following year, you really want the budget book. Budget book offers you page at a time, and you can write it. It's kind of tough to write in your smartphone and get the answer you exactly want. Smartphone lets you look at it when you're sitting at lunch at your office or somewhere without taking up a gazillion feet of space with a 3-inch notebook. What I would ask, think about which way you would like it, if you want both or if you just want one, and send me an email and let me know your choice. I would need that by probably November 15th, because believe it or not, the books are made by hand by the administration staff. And those have to be put together. The budget is put on a disk, and it's in Excel, and you can read it, but you can't use it to make any alterations to it on the CD. The books and the CDs will be available December 2nd, which is a Tuesday, at the superintendent's office over here in the green building. You will need to go in and sign for it, that you have received your book and CD. And it is your responsibility to get it. Next up on the list, liaison assignment request forms. And where did I put them? I know you all got them. I just want to have one to...
I put mine right here if you just want to look at it.
I just got to... I had printed extras. There they are. Of course it's on the bottom. For those, again, who are new, we have groups of 3, and in 1 or 2 cases, maybe 4 people that will go and visit with the various departments. They're all listed here on this list. And we will ask our questions and questions from other budget committee members that they have sent to the lead of that particular team about their budget, so that when the department head comes to the budget committee's meeting, we get a little prep from our own liaison team, and then they do their budget. What I would ask is that you fill this out as it says, with the first choice, second choice, third choice, or check off no preference if it doesn't matter. You will be assigned, at the very least, 2 different assignments. Try to give you what you ask for. It is not always possible, but we try our best, and then figure out who we're going to have, and it's a more experienced budget committee member as the lead for that department review. And that's where you go to a meeting with the department and talk over their budget, meet with the department head, might get a tour, depending upon what it is they're looking to put in their budget. And you become the sort of semi-expert on that budget. And then you come to us and let us know what you found. And all 3 of you get to do it. And for our school board member, she gets the night off. You don't have to do liaison assignments because you're on the school board. You're doing them all on your own. If you want to do a liaison assignment, you are more than welcome.
I'd like to.
Okay,
Thanks.
fine then. Have at it. If you choose to fill this out tonight and turn it into me, great. If you don't, you can scan it in, you can send it snail mail, you can just send me your choices in email. Any questions on this? Okay. Another thing I didn't put on the agenda I put up is the meeting schedule and another meeting that we might have. I have a concern because the town is not a member of the New Hampshire Municipal Association anymore, Pat, is that what it is? Okay. We were not allowed to participate in the budget training. So they decided not to be a member this year, so we couldn't participate in it. Department of Revenue Administration has no money in their budget to send somebody down to us to do any kind of training whatsoever. What I am going to suggest is that we have an in-house training session, not very long. It'll be strictly a workshop, strictly on the budget. Yes, it has to get posted, but there are no votes taken, and attendance is only taken for the aspect of, okay, who came and what questions do they have, but if you don't show up, you know, it's not an absence or anything like that, and if you don't want to show up, you don't show up. But what I would like to know is, are you interested in doing a workshop like that? I can tell you right now, it's going to be in December, if we do it.
Yeah, I would.
Okay, you'd be interested? Interested? Okay. Rick, I don't think you need to go, but you're more than welcome to.
I just think it's a real
Okay.
benefit for the newer members and
Yeah.
anyone else that wants to
Okay.
brush up.
I will set something up. It won't be here, I don't think. We'll do it, probably, we might do it at the conference room over at the high school. As long as the meeting's posted and the public's allowed, that's good. My dog might have something to say about that, though. But, heck, we had a planning and building committee once at somebody's pool with a barbecue, so, and it was legal. Okay, I will work on that and let you know when we're going to do that. At this point in time,
Can I ask you a question?
yes.
On that? I'm just wondering, for years down the road, is it possible for the school district to join the municipal association? And if so, can we somehow suggest that we would really appreciate that?
I have no idea. I don't even remember what the cost is to join the municipal association.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think that especially for new members, that training session is really valuable. And even all the years I've been on the budget committee, I make it a practice to go, every 3 or 4 years just to see, hey, what's changed, what's new. So it is a valuable training.
Okay. I will try to find an answer to that question.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, we have public participation. And seeing the vast amount of people that are disguised as blue seats, is there anybody who would like to speak? Well, seeing as how nobody came up to the mic, I will close public participation. Oh, yeah. What? You're a Jets fan? Leave. I would like to ask, is there any other items that we need to talk about, or any comments you need to make? And not to adjourn just yet. Okay, quiet bunch tonight. I would like to thank you all for coming this evening and listening to Matt and dealing with the business at hand. And I will work on a schedule with the superintendent to come up with. And then what will happen on the liaison assignments is you will get a a notice, probably by email, as to what you've been assigned to and who will the lead will be. And the lead for that particular department will give you a call and let you know when they're going to try and schedule a meeting with that department head. If you have any questions, you can call me. You can send me an email. If you get my voicemail on my phone, leave a message. I'm the only one that can get it. And I will see my phone blinking when I'm able to look at it if I'm not driving the big bus. Now, it's come that time of the evening to say goodnight. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Carol, you made the motion, seconded by Cinder. All those in favor of adjournment? I don't see anybody opposed, so we are adjourned, and thank you and good night. Please turn your signboards back into Pat.
Here's my liaison.
And find out if anybody else in the room here wants to weigh in. Is there anything else?
Sign it? Nothing else?
Don't forget to sign in on the clipboard so we've got your name.
Okay, sure.
Mike?
Just wanted to follow up with the discussion there. You were talking about whether we're going to raise the road or lower the road. Looking at the profile, looks like you're going to reduce the road in that section adjacent. So essentially from station 0 to like 100, 150. It looks like the profile is being lowered from existing grade by as much as 4 feet. That's the plan. I just want to make sure
Yes.
that we, that
That's correct.
that there